All right, hello and welcome to part 2 of Operation 14 Years from Ministry Revealed. I pray that you guys have continued. Those of you watching will continue through to the end with this incredible revelation and understanding of 14 years. I know everybody's got their charts and their graphs, and I understand that. I'm just showing you guys this to show you that we're going to have this connected with this drive. So you're going to see this on this USB drive, on this jump drive, I guess they call it as well. And we're going to explain it today, right? We can see the seals here within the first 7 years. The seventh seal is the last 6 months where there's peace on earth. There's going to be some peace here because they will have seen Christ, as we touched on in the previous video. Then Jesus will be established here in the year 2025. The trumpets, the first 4 trumpets that the angel asked to hold off until the 144,000 got sealed, right? Here's your 144,000. Here is your 144,000 returned on Mount Zion with the 2 witnesses, right? As the 2 witnesses with Jesus. I don't have Jesus here. He's returning on Mount Zion, right? And for the first 4 trumpets, as these trumpets are being blown and they're affecting the world devastatingly upon the earth and upon the trees and upon the seas, right? That's going on here while Jerusalem is protected. Satan loses his battle in heaven. Satan is cast down, and this is the time when Jesus cuts himself off, right? It's Luke 9:26, right? His guys, the pit is going to open up. They're going to come and destroy the city and the sanctuary that was built during the first 3.5 years while Jesus was on Mount Zion. All right? And we're going to talk about that either in this video or it'll be the final part 3 in the series that's going to show this timeline revealed within the scriptures of 14 years. So now, like I said, the title of this one is the revealing, the understanding of the true 14 years and not the 7 years. And what started it all off for me, the revelation that first came to me was in 2 Corinthians 12. So let's go into the program that I prefer reading it from, which is this eSword program. And let's go into 2 Corinthians 12. And this is what was first revealed to me. In the first video, I spoke about the books and who the books are speaking to. That was the first thing that was revealed to me. The second thing that became revealed was the understanding of 14 years. And like I said in the first video, it wasn't something I was looking for. Neither were the books. I can't explain how it came about except just being led by the Spirit. And when you get through this video, then I'm going to do my best, because I'm not a pastor. Like I said, I'm not a preacher, a teacher. Well, I'm teaching now with these videos, but I've never really been a teacher. So, excuse me. I pray for your patience, and I pray the Spirit will reveal this understanding and that you guys will also go to these teachings for yourselves. Okay? But the 14 years is true, and this is where it was first revealed to me. That in 2 Corinthians 12:2, Paul says, I knew a man above 14 years, right? Above 14 years ago. And when you see the timeline that we were speaking of, we know that from the first the first seal to 6.5, where the rapture happens, there's 6 months where they're going to be in Mount Zion, in paradise. And they're going to be getting shown around, literally. That's what the 7th seal is. It's a time of peace on earth and in paradise before he's there on Zion with the 144,000 and they're going to go out and preach. All right? When we see this is your end of your 14 years, then there's still bowls. And you could see this mark here. I say approximately 6 months, because I believe the bowls are between 5 months and 7 months. So I put approximately 6 months. And these are going to get poured out essentially one after the other for the bowls. And the reason I bring that up is with what Paul is saying here. I knew a man above 14 years ago. And in 2 Corinthians here, how he's speaking, if we scroll down, we notice that he is speaking, where are we? Is it 2 Corinthians 12? Or when we go to 13, look at this. We go to, after 2 Corinthians 12, we go to 2 Corinthians 13, and what does he say? It is the third time I'm coming. So when we're reading this in 2 Corinthians, he's speaking as if the third time he has now come. Meaning what? When the tribulation has ended. When the Lord returns and has set his feet down on the Mount of Olives. Okay? Which is about 14 years ago, sorry. All right? Which is where this understanding all began, and all of these revelations. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I'm going to cover as many as I possibly can to give you clear understanding without going too long. I'm going to try to keep it within that hour time frame, all right? So what do we see here? Paul says, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, okay? So about 14 years ago. And then we have in brackets, whether in the body I cannot tell, whether out of the body I cannot tell, God knows. And then look at what the words he uses here. Excuse me, such as one. This means like one. All right, see the word like? Such as one means like one. So like one who is harpazoed, right? The word we get rapture. Harpazo, which means to seize by force, to catch away, to take out quickly. All right? Before that final destruction, before the wrath of trumpets begins. All right? So, but this one isn't that, because it doesn't say that this one, that this first man that he knew, he doesn't say that he was caught up. He says he was like caught up. So it's not a rapture. It's not a caught up harpazo rapture, but it is like a rapture. And this group, when he was this man, he went to the third heaven. Where is this third heaven? This third heaven is the throne room. This is where God is, where the Son is, up in heaven. Well, isn't that interesting? Because Luke tells us in his discourse, watch this. Let's go Luke 21. In his discourse at the end, which is different than Matthew and Mark's, right? Not a time, that a day, an hour that nobody knows, but look what it says. Luke 21:36. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things, as we talked about before, that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Mark's group and Matthew's group don't have this in their discourses. Luke's group does. Where can you stand before the Son of Man? In heaven. In the third heaven. The third heaven is where they are. Right? I know that I got to remind myself I'm speaking to pastors and teachers and bishops or ministers, whoever's listening to this, in particular them, even though I know this is reaching many others on YouTube and anybody else listening to these USBs. All right? You listening to these lessons. But I must also understand and remind myself that I'm speaking to teachers that have been researching and teaching these things many more years than I have. I'm trying to bring the understanding, the revelation of the truth of the tribulation timeline. Okay? So some of these things I know you know. But the 14 years I know is new for you guys, because it's not taught in any of our churches. Okay? So here we are, the third heaven. And the reason I brought that up is because we know there's three. Like the three, you know, some say there may be 7 or 9. But of the three, we know we have within the space of the air that we breathe, right? From the ground to the mountaintops. And then from the mountaintops to the sky, right? Into the atmosphere. And then they're right in where the sun, moon, and stars are. And then from the third one is where God is. It's where the angels are. It's where all of that heaven as we think about it are in the third heaven. This reference here is the bride. The bride is going to the third heaven. Why? Because the bride isn't returning till everything is over. All right? That's why it is like. That's why Paul doesn't say was caught up here. He says, I don't really understand it, but it's like a rapture. But it's not a rapture. It's like a rapture. All right? Because we're not getting new bodies that are going to be returning. We are just going to be in our spiritual bodies. The bride is going to be in the spiritual body and is going to remain in the third heaven until the tribulation is over. Look what Revelation 12 says. We know that when the bride comes down out of heaven from God, we know that in Revelation 21. But look at right 4 verses to the end of our Bible. All right, look. 21, 20, 19, 18, okay, 17. 4 or 5 verses from the end of the entire Word of God. And look what it says. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and the bride say, come. Right? The bride is, the Holy Spirit is for the bride. Just like we see in the book of Genesis. Right? The Abraham's servant went out, the Holy Spirit representation went out to get the bride for Isaac, the representation of Christ. Right? That's why you see the Holy Spirit and the bride here together at the end saying, come. And then Jesus, when he returns and he's dealing with the group for the rapture in the main harvest, well, who's he for? Jesus said he came for the lost sheep. We know that those are the lost tribes. And I know that I'm speaking, like I said, to pastors. Many understand this. But I know that I'm also teaching and giving some understanding for those who don't. Okay? And then the third group is God's group, who is Judah. So you have the Holy Spirit taking care of the bride, which is what she's been doing, or what the Holy Spirit, what he's been doing for these last 2,000 years. And the bride is going to be taken out and brought to the Son into the third heaven. And then you have Jesus with taking his people out, the lost sheep, the lost tribes, before his wrath begins, which is trumpets. And then you have God protecting and dealing in protection over his people, Judah, before the bowls are poured out. All right? And all of that is that 14 years of tribulation. That 14 years and change, which is why you see on this that it's, 14 plus about 14 years. And when I'm going to show you either later in this video, but most likely the next one, you're going to see that it's begun this year. Not the tribulation hasn't been released, but we've got our starting point that has begun in Zechariah. Okay? So when we go back now to 2 Corinthians 12, we see that this first group goes to the third heaven, which is the same relation that Luke was talking about in his discourse. Now let's go to the second part, and we see that I knew such a man, whether in the body or out of the body. See, it's in brackets portion is different. So it's a different man, it's a different group, right? And what does he say about this one? He says that he was caught up. So not like one caught up, but that he was caught up. Well, where do we get the reference to this? We go to Revelation 12. This first one that gets like caught up is somewhere after this visual appearing that makes us all go, whoa, right? This is the word appeared. It's not just a simple voluntary observation like September 23rd was on 2017. It is going to be as looking at something magnificent, something that makes us go, wow, something remarkable, not something voluntary. All right, so it's going to be a wow event that we're going to observe. And between this event and this all beginning, the tribulation of the seals beginning, from that point to this point is where that like a harpazo, like a caught up, like a rapture happens. But now what about was a rapture, right? We see in this second one, right, that the second one, he was caught up. He was harpazoed. He was raptured. So in Revelation 12, where do we see was caught up? Right here, look at that. This is the rapture that I'm saying is that 6.5 years later in the year 2024. All right, here is your was caught up. But we have in Corinthians one that was like caught up, which is before this one, which is the one that Luke is talking about. So you see that? Here is your was caught up, but where is your like one being caught up? And that's the mystery that's being shown, right? That's the mystery Paul talks about. There's one that happens in here, which is what Luke is saying, which is the bride of Christ. All right, let's go to 2 Corinthians again. So we have our like one being caught up. That goes to the third heaven. We have one that was caught up, and this one goes to paradise. They don't go to the same place. So where's paradise? Eden. Where's Eden is the question, right? Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I believe this paradise, Eden, is where the Lord is going to be when he returns on Mount Zion. However that's going to look. But I'm going to prove it also within the timeline of Zechariah and Hosea. Within those 14 chapters. The understanding of this 14 years is revealed in them. All right? And so as you keep reading through this, you see that Paul is talking to them here as if what? As if here the third time. So he's telling above 14 years ago. And at the beginning of those 14 years, there was a man, a group that was like a harpazo, like a rapture. Then later there was a second group that was a rapture. And he's saying, now I am here as if the third time. Again, here's that third time showing up again. All right, let's go to another explanation. Let me show you in the Gospels. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All right, not in John, but let's go to Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Because we know John is dealing with the 144,000 now. So let's go to Luke and see if we can prove this out in Mark and Matthew a little bit more. Look what it says in Luke. Read the last chapter of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And pay attention to the wording that's in each of them. And look at this. Let's go to the last chapter of Luke, all right, with the ascension, when Jesus rises up to heaven, all right? Listen to the explanation in Luke. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and carried into heaven. Carried. Right? Now remember, if we know that Luke now is talking to the bride, and in Luke's definition or explanation, Jesus is carried up. right? What do you do with your bride, right? What's the classic thing that that the groom would do with his bride? He would carry her over into the house, right? Carry over the the doorway, over the entranceway, right? He would carry her, right? Bear, bring, carry, lead up. This is the definition of the bride being carried over that threshold. Now let's see what let's see what Mark says. This was such an incredible revelation when I came across it. Look at this. So then, after the Lord had spoken to them, he was received up into heaven. Isn't that interesting? Why does it suddenly change? And it's even a different word. Look, this is the Greek 399 for Luke's group. Look what they say here in Mark. He was received up from before them. A bride is carried across the threshold. Guests are received, aren't they? Look at that. They're received up. But now watch this. So there you have your bride. She's carried up. There you have Mark referenced as the guests being received up. Well, what about Matthew? Let's see how Matthew ends. This one's incredible. And Jesus is teaching them, right? And he says, where is it with his reports? Keep on guard, the Great Commission. And let's read from 19. Or let's read from 18. So Matthew 28:18. And Jesus came and spoke unto them, all power is given to me in heaven and in earth. Why? Because it's at the end, right? Everything has been put under his foot, under his feet. Go you therefore and teach all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. Why doesn't he get carried away? Why isn't he received up? Because in Matthew, at the end of Matthew's group, for Judah, for the Jewish people, he's with them for the 1,000-year millennium when he returns with his feet down on the Mount of Olives to establish his 1,000-year reign. So he finishes Matthew with saying, I am with you even until the end of the world, which is right to the end of the 1,000-year millennial reign. And when Satan is released, he is defeated and all the armies with him. And then the bride returns. You see that? That's why Luke, it says carried away. That's why Mark says received up. And that's why Matthew, we see none of that, but that he is now establishing himself with them until the end of the world. These revelations are all throughout the Bible, all throughout the Gospels. Let me show you another one. Let's see in Luke 9:27. Listen to what he says when he's coming for this group. But I tell you of a truth, there be some certainties. But I tell you of a truth, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the kingdom of God. Meaning there will be some that will not have died, that within a moment they're going to be changed into their spiritual forms, and they're going to be in the kingdom of God. They're going to see it. They're going to be alive, and in the next moment, boom, they're going to see the kingdom of God. They won't have tasted of death until, boom, right at that moment when they see the kingdom of God. Well, what about Mark? Listen to Mark's definition. Mark 9, verse 1. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here, which shall not taste of death until they have seen, past tense of see, the kingdom of God come with power. Excuse me. So past tense, they will have seen him coming, right? They will have seen the kingdom of God come with power. Well, where do we have a past tense that they will have seen him coming before they get to take part in it? It goes right back to Revelation 6, the sixth seal. Right? Revelation 6, at the end of the sixth seal, everybody's panicking. Like we said, we were talking about in the first video. What happens? Mountains fall on us, rocks fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come. Which means what? They're going to have seen this stuff. They're going to have seen him coming. And when we go to the sixth seal, the seventh, Revelation 7, between the sixth, after the sixth, but before the seventh, we see the 144,000 get sealed. Then they're going to gather all of the church for the rapture. We go to the chapter 8, which is the seventh seal, and there's your half an hour that I showed you on my chart. That's 6 months approximately. That's why it says about half an hour, about 6 months on earth, which was that half an hour approximately in heaven, where they're at rest and they're being shown around like we read in Esther. They're being prepared and shown all of their places that we spoke about at the rapture that Jesus had been preparing for them. The place that he'd been preparing for them in paradise. Right? They're not in the temple. That's where the bride is. She is protected there in the temple. Right? 7 years will have passed. These guys have now been received up. Right? They are, where were we? They are received up at the rapture to go to the banquet. The bride was raptured, 7 years up there, and then 7 years for the banquet. All right? So when we see that, Mark says they will have seen. That's why they will have seen, because everybody says they will have seen the one who sits on the throne and know that the wrath of the Lamb is coming. So that's why in Mark we have a past tense of they will have seen the kingdom come with power before their rapture comes. It's just like the story in Luke and in Mark and in Matthew for Jonah. We'll touch on that as well. That will also reveal this. But now let's go to Matthew. And I got to remember where it is. Is it Matthew 12? Just give me a moment. Some of these I didn't plan on where I was going to go with it. 15. Just give me a moment. Here, I'm just going to pause it. Okay, so here we are in Matthew 16. And Matthew 16:28. Listen to Matthew's version. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. When are they going to see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom? They will have seen him coming when he comes to set his feet down on the Mount of Olives. So we can see who these books are speaking to, and we're starting to understand there's this time frame. All right? So let me show you now Psalms 90 verse 10. This is the next thing. So 2 Corinthians was the first thing that caught my attention in 1 Corinthians 12. Okay? But now, let's go Old Testament, and let's go to the book of Psalms. And let's see what Psalms 90 verse 10 tells us. Because everybody is talking about 70 years. We know that Israel just turned 70. We know that Donald Trump just declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel. We know that we've been waiting for 70 years of a generation. That is correct. In Psalms 90 verse 10, a generation is 70 years. And this is where many pastors, teachers, all sorts of people that we listen to, whether online or in the church, when they're talking eschatology, they explain this first portion of Psalms 90. Okay, let's read it. The days of our years are 80, and in this case, it's not a score, like I said in the first video, of marking 1, 2, 3. It is the definition, understanding of score being 20. So 60 and 10, so 70 years, and if by reason of strength, they be 80, which is 80 years, yet is our strength labor and sorrow. For it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Now, what on earth does that mean? And I understand, I didn't know this until just these past few months, as these truths and these understandings of revelations were being revealed to me. We all understand this 70 years. But how do we explain the 80 and then soon cut off, we fly away? This one verse is the understanding of Revelation 12. This understanding is this verse is the revelation, the understanding of Daniel. Daniel 9. The truth is all in here, in a big, what do they say, like a macro view, a really high up in the sky, looking down overview of the tribulation years are revealed in this one verse. 70 years. We are currently right now, for the first time in almost 2,000 years, Israel became a nation. She received Jerusalem back in 1967, 19 years later. So we were at the 50th and the 70th. Israel is now 70 years. We know from the discourses that this generation shall not pass. And here we are at the generation of 70. Well, what happens after 70? We are currently in the 70th year as of May 14th. So if we're in the year of the 70th, what happens from here on forward? Well, it tells us 70 years, and if by reason of strength they go to 80 years, so there's 10 years. What happens during these 10 years? What is this reason of strength? It tells us, yet is their strength labor, toil, mischief, wickedness, travail, trouble, and sorrow. Right? Mischief, mourners, sorrow, evil, idle. Again, trouble. These 10 years are tribulation years. Where do we get sorrow? Look, affliction. You're going to want to remember these words. Trouble. Right? Sorrow. Pain. Right? Sorrow. Labor. travail. These words mean tribulation. And where do we see this? Let's go to Revelation 12. Remember, we saw and soon cut off, and we fly away after 10 years. But listen to what it says. We have to be careful with listening to these words. 10 years, for it is soon, after those 10 years, soon cut off, and we fly away. Because if it was only the 10 years, and the fly away, which I'm going to show you is the time times and half a time, that would only equal 13 and a half years. But it doesn't say just that. It says soon. Why? Because it's 10 years plus a portion of 6 months and 3.5 years for 14 years. Now, how can I prove this? Let's go to Revelation 12. Where do we see the travail? 70 years. We're at 70 years right now. This is about to appear. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth. Look. In travail. That was the definition we were reading in Psalms 90 and 10 for the labor years. Right? For the sorrow and labor. Look, pained. Look, pain, loss, toil, which is a labor, torture. This is the tribulation. All right? And now if we continue through and we say this is the start of the tribulation, when the bride is taken out and the tribulation really begins. All right? And we go through this, and I'm telling you that it's 10 years. 10 years till when? Satan arrives. All right? We've had our 7 years of seals. Let me go back up. We've had our 7 years. The bride is taken out. There's tribulation. There's the red horse, not just the red horse, this is a celestial event, right? And it's going to cast those fig trees, those figs to the earth. And then you have the caught up that we've been talking about, which comes after the sixth seal, right? The 144,000 are sealed. Then you have your rapture. And then you have the woman that flees into the wilderness for 1,260 days. When? After the 7 years of seals. All this is seals here. From one being the first seal to the end of the sixth seal before the seventh when the harpazo, when the rapture happens. Then you have 1,260 days. So 1,260 days, what's happening during that 1,260 days? Michael and Satan and their angels are having a war in heaven. When Michael prevails and Satan loses, the dragon, Satan, is cast down to the earth, and he's going to go after the woman. This is the time when Jesus, because he's not going to be here at the same time as Satan, he's going to, whatever this Mount Zion setup is going to be removed, is going to go away, however that's going to work. And Satan and his minions are going to go after the 144,000. But we know from Luke 10 that they've been given additional power to be able to tread on serpents and scorpions, that they can't be affected by these guys coming after them. So here is our 10.5 year mark. What happens? Well, look at where we are. The woman, that she might fly away into the wilderness. For how long? A time times and half a time. what happens? Soon cut off, 10 years plus a soon, and then what? They fly away. And that flying away is the reference of a time, times, and half a time. It's Daniel 12. How long shall this be? And the angel of the Lord says, for a time, times, and half a time. It's the last 3.5 years of the 14 years. There's your 10. There's the about 6-month portion and cut off, and then we fly away for 3.5 years. This is Judah, right? When she flies away into the wilderness. This isn't flee, this is fly. So it's not the 1260, it's the time, times, and half a time. Right? This is the understanding. This is the overall view of Revelation 12. Right up to the point where they fly away. You have your 10.5 years, fly away 3.5 years. 14 years right here, just like we were showing in Revelation 12. Well, now let's go prove it out in Daniel. Let's see what Daniel 9 says. Watch this. It's been such an amazing ride. God is so good. I'm nobody to know this information, guys. Right? 70 weeks. Yes, there's been the multiplication. We understand this. We're not going to be talking about that. We're not talking about how it equaled when Jesus came. It did. It even equals the calculation to 2018 from when the Ottoman Empire and the king said to rebuild the city and the walls in about 1535 or whatever it was. The calculation equals 2018. And it just so happens that the calculation lands on the 70th year of Israel, in the year that Trump declares Jerusalem the capital of Israel. This is just getting going. Wait till I really start showing you more of this stuff. Okay? But this is the end time. What I'm revealing to you guys is the end time understanding of these scriptures that have been revealed to me. The time that is upon us for the tribulation beginning. All right? Look. 70 weeks. This is a reference to 70 years. Right? Shabbat. Right? Or Shabuah, which is when they were, specifically of weeks, Pentecosts. All right? 70 Pentecost. 70 years of Pentecost are determined upon thy people. And everybody thinks that Pentecost has passed. It hasn't. It hasn't. Nisan 1 began on April 30th, not March 30th. Or 31st, whatever it was. It was April. This was a year of a second Adar. It was revealed from another teaching that I watched about the sun, moon, and stars. Forget this grain and this and that. It was revealed in the sun, moon, and stars. With Spica, the moon, and the sun, and when they crossed the horizon. And it was revealed to me by the Lord that it's the mystery hidden in our blue moons. So I've got a teaching on it, which is it's a picture of the 3 different colors of moons. And this year we had 2 blue moon months, which is on our Gregorian calendar, 2 full moons within the same month. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, probably in the next video. But that revealed the understanding that this year was in fact a second Adar year. Which means in the Levitical count, Passover was May 14th. Right on the 70th year anniversary. Well, Pentecost, that pushes Pentecost out to July 17th. And this says 70 Pentecosts. The meaning is weeks of Pentecosts. So remember, I'm speaking in end time understanding. So 70 years of Pentecost are determined upon thy people. And 70 years is what? A generation. And I just showed you that, and I'm showing you still that if it's 14 years and Jesus died in 31 and he's returning in 2031 at the end of it, that we're now in the 14 years away, and that time frame is the 70 years. Do you understand? And this is 70 Pentecosts. The bride, which is the portion of the church, she is still part of the church. The church was conceived at Pentecost and has been, quote unquote, the responsibility of the Holy Spirit all of this time. It's the Holy Spirit that is going to remove her, the bride portion, at Pentecost. So this, as a watch person, as a watchman, we should be really paying attention, especially those pastors that don't like to touch this. Now is a time to wake people up. Show these teachings or learn them for yourselves very quickly and teach your churches, teach your congregation. It is so vitally important at this time. So here we have our 70 years, which, like we showed in Psalms 90, verse 10, we're now in. It has begun May 14th. And listen to what Jesus says. Know therefore and understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. So not 70, 7. So in the end time understanding, 70 of weeks means 70 years. So this would mean 7 years. And this 70 is one that was missing, like I said before. It's like marking off 1, scoring 2, scoring 3. This understanding is in, let me just do a quick check here. I believe it's in Genesis 15. Watch this. Here it is. And he brought him forth abroad and said, look, now toward heaven and tell. All right? Tell, which means what? Same as this one. Number. And what does it mean? To score with a mark. Right? 1, 2, 3. To score with a mark. Right? Score. The translators have missed out on this piece in the understanding of score not only meaning this, it does mean this, but it also means to score something like I just showed you, as in to mark it off. Just like so many other scriptures, you know, a woman could mean a wife, it could mean a bride, it could mean the whore, it could, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with this 70. It has one more understanding that needed to be attached to it. And so when I'm saying that is, here's your 7 years and 3.5. Your 3 and 2 weeks. It's 3.5. This is your 7, your 3.5. Now let's see if this proves out. So 7 years are going to pass by, and during those 7 years, Jerusalem's going to be destroyed. And 62 weeks, the city and the street shall be built again, even in troublous times, during the first 4 trumpets. And after those 3.5 years, Messiah Jesus, Christ himself, look, there's the word again, shall be cut off. When? 7, 3.5, 10.5 years. Why is he cutting himself off? He says, but not for himself. And the people of the little p prince that shall come. Why? Because they've lost their battle in heaven. Revelation 12, which is when Satan is cast out of heaven, when he loses, and they're all cast to the earth, and he comes, and what happens? They open the pit. The people of the prince that shall come. And look, cut off. It's exactly what we were showing in Psalms 90, verse 10. 10 years, right? Then soon, because of a half year, cut off. It's the exact same calculation as Daniel 9. 10 and about half years, and then cut off. And then we go to Daniel 12 or Revelation 12:14 when they're cut off and they fly away. Jesus is going to cut himself off. And they're going to fly away for a time, times, and half a time. It is all throughout the scriptures, guys. It is revealed all around us. I pray that this is reaching you, that the understanding is coming through, right? It is all around us. And these 70 years equal right now, right? Daniel 9:24, 70 years. And if we do this old way of calculation for when Jesus came the first time, it even equals right now. From the Ottoman Empire when they took it over and they proclaimed to rebuild. And I'm going to show you that, in fact, just like Daniel is telling us here, that they're going to rebuild it. Why? Because Jesus Christ himself is going to be here on Mount Zion. It's the exact same reason in Revelation 14, when the trumpets are about to begin, that the Lamb is on Mount Zion with the 144,000. It's the exact same reason in Revelation 13 in the church of Philadelphia when it says, "Behold, I will make them that are of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet." The 144,000 that have the power of Jesus. Look at Luke. Watch this in Luke. Luke 10. These are all end time revelations. See, the first group goes out, right, of the 144,000. And then what happens? They return. And then what does Jesus tell them? And they were so excited, they were able to cast out demons. And Jesus tells them what? After they've done half of their job, they come back to him, and he says, "I beheld Satan fall from heaven, fall as lightning from heaven." Well, when is that? That's the fifth trumpet. This is when Jesus is going to cut himself off. But what does he tell them first? He's going to give them greater power, his kind of power. "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." This is the 144,000 that are going to be sent out during the second portion of trumpets, which is at the fifth trumpet. Why? Look, they're going to be treading scorpions. We know in Revelation 12 that when Satan loses his battle and he comes to the earth, what's he going to do? He's going to go after the 144,000. Imagine Satan and his fallen angels chasing you. But you've got the power of Jesus that they can't hurt you. You understand? Psalms 90 verse 10 is all of chapter 12. Is Daniel 9 is evidenced when Jesus is going to be here at trumpets. The world's going to see something that they're going to know and understand as him at the end of the 6th seal. And then he's going to set himself up, I'm saying in the year 2025, on Mount Zion. It's incredible, this understanding. And the importance of it now. The now importance of it, because it has begun. The 70th year was May 14th, which was Passover. The real, true Passover, for those of you who will still have internet access to be able to go on YouTube and watch Ministry Revealed and see the teachings that are there on it. But I pray that there's enough and clear understanding that reveals the truth and the understanding of the tribulation, the end days of the tribulation. Right? Let's look at the rest of this here in Daniel. What happens after Jesus cuts himself off 3.5 years into trumpets, which is 10.5 years into the tribulation? The people of the prince that shall come, we know that, the 5th trumpet. And what are they going to do? They're going to go into the sanctuary, right? And Satan, not the Antichrist, the Antichrist's job and the false prophet, they're going after Christians. That's during the portion of seals. In trumpets, when Satan gets here, he's going after Judah. Which is why you have in Mark and Matthew the abomination of desolation spoken of slightly differently. Because the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel in Mark's group is for seals, when the Antichrist is going to be given power to continue. It's a very important word that people miss. But he's going to have power to continue. He's going to get his power at the red horse rider, but when he gets power to continue 42 months, shortly after that time is when the pale horse is released and the beheadings begin, which is where we get our martyrs at the 5th seal. This is what's going on. This is Mark's abomination of desolation. When he gets his power to continue and he's got this world type of domination and he's got the power to continue, this is it right here. This is when the Christians that are there, this is when they need to run. I'm not saying people aren't dying here. Of course, many, many, many millions and millions are dying here. But this is when he's got his power to continue, that now it won't matter. Now he is going after the Christians. And that time is going to continue until until the rapture of the church in the year 2024, when the 144,000 are sealed and gather them together and bring them to Mount Zion. Where the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place that Matthew talks about is when Satan is now on the earth. When he is on the earth and he's going to stand in the temple that was built during these 3.5 years when Christ was here on Mount Zion. And they were rebuilding the temple during these 3.5 years of peace here, of relative peace, while the destruction of the earthly events that were happening during trumpets. When Jesus leaves and Satan arrives, this is the time when Judah now runs. No time to look back. Same with here. It's the time to run. One is speaking for Mark on the Christians. One is speaking to Judah, for the Jewish people. One is for the Antichrist against Christians. One is for Satan against the Jews. Right? That's the understanding as well in Deuteronomy 32 verse 30. How does one chase 1,000 and two chase 10,000? Remember, the brothers, one will be more than the older one. Remember, the younger one will be more nations and more people than the older one. Judah is the thousands of thousands. The lost sheep, the lost tribes, with the Gentiles, right, the blended in, they are the 10,000 times 10,000. That's why it says 2 chase 10,000 and 1 chases 1,000. That's Deuteronomy 32:30. It's the Antichrist and false prophet that chase the Christians. And it's Satan who chases Judah. Right? And when we go into Revelation 12, I'll come right back to this. I'm not getting too far off track. When we go back to Revelation 12, and we see here the 1,260 days that this woman fled, this woman is Rome. It's the false prophet Antichrist group, if you will. And we see that in Luke, I believe it's Luke 3, when Jesus, and there's another place too, but Jesus is like upset. He said, Luke's talking, he said, then said he unto the multitude that came forth to be baptized to him, O generation of vipers, who has warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Right? I'm not going to go down this too much except to say that this is what is happening here in Revelation 12. Right here, when this woman flees, what is she fleeing from? This is the Antichrist, false prophet, that are fleeing into the wilderness because Jesus is here. So they fled. Yes, they're being fed for whatever reason this works out. Excuse me. That's why John saw her in the wilderness. The woman in the wilderness. Why did she flee into the wilderness for 3.5 years? Because Jesus has come. There's this peace now for this false peace of 7 years, but there's going to be this 3.5 years of peace while Jesus is here. After what? After the first 7 years, and the rapture happens, and then Jesus comes, and what have they done? They fled. And they fled for 1,260 days. Just like if we look of the 42 months, the times of the Gentiles, right? And they shall tread underfoot for 42 months. Well, we look at the Antichrist. When the Antichrist shows up, right? He's got power given to him. See, power and seat and authority are given to him for an amount of time that we don't have a determined number. But after he's wounded and after the war, right? If we look at this, Red Horse Rider, the Antichrist is revealed. There's war. There's famines, which will also be of the word, because sites, websites, and everything will be gone. Bibles will be thrown away. You'll be called out on if you have a Bible. So during this time here, he's reigning as the Antichrist with his seat and authority. But we don't know exactly how long this time is. It's 3 years-ish, 2.5 maybe, right? But then he's going to get power to continue. That's the optimum word there that we see a little bit later here. After those events, and the world starts worshiping him because of what he did during the war, what's going to happen? He's going to be given more power to what? To continue 42 months. That 42 months puts us to the end of seals, when Jesus returns. And then what happens? Revelation 12. They flee because Jesus came. And the time of the Gentiles is over. Time for trumpets. This is what's going on. All right? Let's go back. I'm going to finish up. I know it's starting to get a little bit longer. So I'm going to finish it up. like we were talking about here in Daniel, and there'll be one more video after this. Look at how Daniel finishes, all right? We're in Daniel 9. Watch this. Listen to what it says. So the people of the prince shall come. The pit is opened, right? They're going to come to destroy Jerusalem that was getting rebuilt when Messiah was there for 3.5 years. And the city and the sanctuary and the end thereof shall be with a flood. Well, where do we see with a flood? Back to Revelation 12. Right? We go to Revelation 12, and when he goes after the woman, when Satan gets cast out and he goes after the woman, right? He's going to change. He's going to go after Judah, and it says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood, that he might carry away this woman of a flood. But then the Lord opens up the mouth of the earth, and the water is swallowed up. Let's go back to Daniel 9. Let's follow this to make sure that this is all on track. So we've got that now. Chases her with a flood. And then what do we read? And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. Unto the end of a war, which means there's going to be a war that's going to end at some point. Well, which war? Remember, he's going to make war with the 144th, with the two witnesses, right? So he makes war with the two witnesses. And what do we see towards the end? At the end of the 6th trumpet, where are we here? Give me one moment. Okay, there's the 5th. And they're going to go after the two witnesses, right? Let me go into 11. All right. We know that they're going to go and make war. See, here it is. And they shall make war against them. Which ones? The ones out of the bottomless pit. They're going to come and make war against them. Now, everybody thinks that as soon as they come out, that they've got victory over them, and that's the end of the 3.5 years. Well, that's not what it says. Their dead bodies shall lie in the streets. See, when they come out of the bottomless pit, they're going to make war with them. This war is going to last for a certain period of time. And then when they do get killed, what happens? By the time it's done, and there's a great earthquake, and a 10th part of the city fell, 7,000, and look what happens. This is after they were lying in the streets for 3.5 days. After the war was done and they were killed, they were lying in the streets for 3.5 days, and then Jesus said, "Come up hither." And then there was a great earthquake when they shot up, and look what it says. The second woe is done. The 6th trumpet is done. There's only one trumpet left. So they didn't die, right away at the first one. The pit is opened and Satan arrives, but there's a war that goes on here for 2.5 years. I think about 2.5 years. There's this war going after the two witnesses. Because when they're killed, it shows us that it's the end of the 6th trumpet. And there's only one left. Which means what? There's only, and you're going to be able to follow this here, there's one woe left, right? We have one woe left. Oh, it even says, the third woe, the last woe, comes quickly. There's one woe left. Now watch this. When we go back, let's go back to Daniel first. Let's see how long something is. This is going to be very, very, This is a very incredible revelation. Let's go to Daniel 9. And remember, these are all end time understandings, all right? Watch this. And unto the end of the war, desolations are determined. So it means there's going to be an end to this war, which we just saw. And at the end of the 6th trumpet. Now what does that mean? There's one trumpet left. There's one woe remaining. And I believe that leaves about 1 year left. In the last 3.5 years, there's about 2.5 years of this war and desolations determined. And there's 1 year left. And look at what it says. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 year. Remember, end time understanding like we were talking about here. 70 years where we are right now. 7 years, 3.5 years, 10.5 years. There's a war for 2.5 during it. And in the final year, Satan is going to make a covenant. Do you see that? And then he's going to break it in the middle of it. And then you're going to see what? Then shall be poured upon the desolate. Right? The bowls are coming. It's the final year of the 14 years. You want to see? I'm going to prove this to you with one last piece of scripture before I finish. Watch what happened in Genesis 29 with Jacob marrying Leah, Rachel, and then still working for Laban. All right? We have what happens. He works 7 years and he gets Leah. Right? He works 7 years. So he works 7 years first. He gets Leah. That's the Holy Spirit since the spring of 2011 to right now in 2018. It's 7 years that he worked, and he gets Leah. Then it's going to be 7 years of seals, and then Rachel. But listen to what it says. Jacob's first 7 years, they seemed but a few days. They weren't the tribulation years. They were the easy years that the Holy Spirit was working at gathering the bride. These past 7 years that have already taken place. That's why it says they seemed easy. They seemed like a few days. But then we know the story that he gets Leah. After he gets Leah, and he's not happy with it, obviously, he says he's just going to, work 7 more years, and you can get Rachel, who is who you wanted, right? Your lost sheep, the ones that you came for, not these Gentiles. So work 7 more years, and I'll give you Rachel. So work during the time of seals, and he doesn't say that they were easy. He just says, like begrudgingly, you can say, that he just worked them. They're the 7 years of seals, and he gets Rachel. But listen to what he says next. So he fulfills her week, and then what? Genesis 29, verse 30. And he went also into Rachel, and loved her also, and Rachel more than Leah. And listen. And he served with him yet 7 more years. So he's worked 21 years for Laban. But watch this. In Genesis 31, listen to what happens here with Jacob speaking to his father-in-law. He says, look, Laban, speaking to his father-in-law, look, thus have I been 20 years. But we just read that he worked 21 years for him. But this says only 20. Well, listen to this. In thy house I have served thee 14 years, right? 14 years for your 2 daughters, right? So we just talked about that. 2011 to 2018, the time we're currently in, just like the book of John is relating to. Then he worked 7 more years, the seals years, and he gets the next one. There's your 14 years. Only the second 7 were tribulation. But then he says, and I worked 6 years for thy cattle, and you've changed my wages 10 times. But 6 years, that's 20. That's not 21 years. Where does this put us in the grand scheme of things? In the final year we were just talking about in the book of Daniel. I just said there's 1 more year left. That when Satan is going to make this fake covenant for 1 year. In the final, the 13th to the 14th year. And here we have a missing year. Listen to this conversation. Laban says to Jacob, "Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee." In the final year, they make a covenant. In the 21st year. Do you understand how exciting this is, guys? How these scriptures are being revealed before our eyes? This is absolutely incredible. This is your end time Daniel 9 understanding, your Psalms 90 and 10 understanding, your Revelation 12 understanding, your seals understanding, the books and who they're speaking to understanding. All in relation to the end days, to the final days, the tribulation days that are about to begin. In the final year, we just calculated 7, 3.5, 2.5, 1. And it's the 20th. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that unbelievable? And I'm not done. This was to prove to you, to show, to reveal what the Spirit has been revealing to me of the truth of this 14 years. I have even more, but I'm going to leave it at this because this was the right between the eyes. Oh my goodness. Look at it from Genesis to Revelation revealed. And in the final video, I'm going to reveal the book of Psalms from chapter 18 to 32, 31, 32, and then 118 to 132. And then I'm going to show you Hosea and Zechariah in their 14 years and reveal the time of the year 2018 that we are currently in. That leaves no doubt in my mind, so that I pray that it will be received by everybody who listened this far in, that will watch this final video, the part 3 of the series, the final piece, to understand the season that it is now. And for those listening after it has begun and the bride has been taken, that this will help you understand the times you are living in, and that you are not to believe that in 3.5 years after this escape has happened of the bride, don't think there's going to be this rapture in 3.5 years. It's not coming in 3.5 years. It will be about 6.5 years. That is so vitally important, because when everybody is thinking they were all taught 7 years of tribulation when the truth is 14, they're not going to think that it was the rapture, because as believers they were still here, but they just weren't found accounted worthy is what happened. They're going to think that because they've been taught 7 years, that maybe mid-tribulation is going to be the rapture after 3.5 years. And it won't. It's going to be extremely discouraging for millions upon millions and tens of millions of people around the world, having expected that it was going to be 3.5 years in. And right around that time, what was I showing you? It'll be the time when the Antichrist has his power to continue 42 months. And it will be the beheadings. It will be the time of the purposeful, direct killing of Christians worldwide. Which is why at the 5th seal, we see the martyrs under the altar. All right? I love you guys. I pray this reaches everybody humanly possible from these videos. It is the truth. It is revealed here. It has been revealed to me, and my job is to get it out however I can to as many as I can. And this is what we're doing with our operation, our mission here at Ministry Revealed, called Operation 14 Years. There's one more video to come. I pray you guys will click on it and watch it to understand the season that we're in. And for those watching it at a later date and you're in these times, you'll be able to understand the approximate time of when these events are going to happen so that you can prepare your hearts, right? Prepare your hearts for the time of what's coming. And accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior if you haven't. Repent of all sins. Give Him thanks so that you can get out here. Get out. Because if you're not part of the main harvest, you weren't part of the first fruits, and you've missed the harvest, what's coming, man, not something you want to be a part of. You don't want to be a part of this either for those who are listening ahead of time. The bride hasn't left yet. So it's now. Now. All right? I know it was a longer video, but it was worth your time. It was worth my time. I love you. I pray this reaches all of you. God bless you. Feel free to email me or call me. I don't want phone calls, obviously, preferably not, but I will listen to emails, and I will follow up as much as I can with emails, and I will read them all. But please, I know because I'm putting this on YouTube as well, that people are going to get that phone number, but please try to be decent with it, all right? Do your best and respect me and my family as well. All right, guys, I love you. God bless you. Thank you very much. Take care.